Good morning, guys. What's going on? Very excited for today's topic. There is a lot going on in China. As you've probably seen, a lot of the headlines are reading like China in mayhem. There's a bank run going on in like many cities in China, and there is a lot of cover up by the Chinese government. Gonna kind of save face so the outside world doesn't think that there's anything big going on in China. Well, there's pretty much like no way that they can cover up what exactly is going on now just because there is so much crap going on. The economy is going down the drain extremely fast. And in today's video, I want to cover exactly what is going on and talk about how this affects the Western hemisphere as well, because the Chinese economy is tightly correlated to the Western economy. They provide a lot of goods and services. A lot of tech comes out of China, and it's very important to realize that if the Chinese economy goes down, if the real estate market bubble crashes in China, it's going to have devastating effects on the American real estate market as well. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Good afternoon, guys. My name is Mac. This is Cryptstar Staking, your number one source of crypto DeFi news on the tube. And today's topic is a little bit, out there. It's a little bit different than my normal crypto banter. It's just because that this news is going to have such a big effect on crypto, as well as anybody who is even thinking about getting into crypto, that it's very important to understand all this information before you jump in during these economic downtimes. So let's go ahead and jump right into our first news article today. So you can see here, small banks in China are running into trouble. Savers could lose everything. Now, just take this with a grain of salt. This article did come out in June 24th, 2022. It was a couple months ago. It's a bit old, but there's still a lot of ramifications from this article going on. The people that are talked about in this article, they still can't get out their money. You can see here there was a guy, I think it's an American dude, when he tried to access his accounts online, a statement will pop up on the homepage informing him that the website was under maintenance and services would be unavailable for a while. Peter told CNN Business. Looks like an American guy, probably living in China, and he still hasn't been able to withdraw his money. There's a lot of things going on in China right now, and one of the big excuses the Chinese government is coming up with is they're accusing a major shareholder of the four banks of illegally attracting money from savers. Basically, what's happening is what the Chinese government is saying is happening is there's a huge collusion inside of these four banks, and they're extremely corrupt. They were giving really high interest rates to people who are saving with them to kind of get them to not go with the bigger banks, but to go with the smaller banks. So they would give this really good interest rate. People would deposit their money, and then these small businesses, they would do huge investments in real estate because there's a huge real estate bubble going on, and we'll read more about that in just a minute. Basically, since Corona hit, a lot of these real estate companies, they haven't been able to make payments or even get their lumber or even get their supplies because of the supply chain problems. Then the banks themselves, they weren't able to get payments from the customers, and that means they aren't able to pay out, or people aren't able to withdraw their money. This is a very big issue in China right now. That's why there's so many riots. And of course, China being China, they are using Corona to go ahead and blacklist people so that they can't do riots anymore. So if you go to a riot, you get a red card, and they kind of tell you with the facial recognition and everything. And then you get a red card, and then you put forced into quarantine by the military, and you can't participate in these riots. And that's one way they're suppressing a lot of the news in China right now. A lot of people are saying that the runs on that small Chinese banks have become more frequent in recent years, and some have been accused of financial properties or improprieties or corruption. But experts worry that a much bigger financial problem could be looming, caused by the fallout from a real estate crash and soaring bad debts related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, it is related to the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's actually more related to the response of China regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, not the actual pandemic itself. So, as many as 400,000 banking customers across China were unable to access their savings. This was back in April, and right now it's even more. It's an even higher number than this. There was a lot of protests going on in China. You can read here. Another protest was planned in June, but as the depositors arrived in Zhengzhou, they were stunned to find that their health codes, which were green upon departure, had turned red, according to 6 people who spoke with CNN and social media posts. Now, anyone with a red code, usually assigned to people affected with COVID or deemed by authorities to be a high risk of infection, immediately became persona non grata. They were banned from all public venues and transport and are often subject to weeks of government quarantine. The reason I know this is at least partially true, even though it's run by an American media company, CNN. My friend is in China right now, and he told me that basically they're locked up, and the police are going up and down the street, the military going up and down the street, forcing people to maintain their quarantine, and they can't even go out for food, right? They have to have their food delivered to their houses, and this was going on for months. And they weren't able to work, and they were receiving a quarter of their baseline paycheck. Now it's talking about kind of the reason the Chinese government is giving for this bank run or whatever. So why are small banks in Henan apparently ignoring the ban and raising deposits from savers like who live on the other side of the country? So they're asking, well, why were these banks able to run these Ponzi schemes? And basically, what's happening is Chinese national banking and insurance regulator says third-party online platforms allow them to bypass the geographical restrictions and grow their businesses nationwide. And this is becoming a norm in China because the government is controlling things so much that anybody who's not kind of going against what the government is saying to do, people accept it because everyone has to do that in order to keep business going. A lot of these shady businesses that are actually doing shady things, they're able to get away with it because the normal public just sees it as the societal norm now. Central government regulators seem to be incapable of enforcing those regulations aimed at preventing this kind of bank run from occurring. He added that corruption was rampant at the local levels of Chinese financial institutions. Perpetrators, such as the person stealing millions from depositors, often get shielded by accomplices in governments and upper level management of the banks. So a lot of the people in the government itself are helping a lot of these, Ponzi schemes get run. The government really can't do anything because they're part of the problem. The funding structure of small lenders also makes them more risky. Compared with big banks, they are more reliant on deposits for funding. Many of them offer high interest rates to attract commercial and interbank deposits. But as the slowing economy means borrowers struggle to repay banks. It becomes difficult to deliver the return they offered savers. There's a lot of interesting things going on in China. I think a really big part about this is the real estate issues, and we're going to jump right into that now. So let's go ahead and talk about one of the biggest reasons for this big bank run going on in China and sort of the reason behind it. It's not just these corrupt companies like the government is saying, it's actually the issue with them pumping the real estate. 2021, developers such as the China Evergrande Group, one of the largest property developers in China, defaulted on their interest payments, eventually leading to a slump in the entire industry. By June 2022, the situation worsened, sales and home prices fell, construction dropped, property loan growth slowed, and consumer confidence weakened. Protests erupted across the country over the mortgage crisis and banking crisis, despite the market exhibiting signs of stability. Basically, what happened is, a lot of these supply chain lines and a lot of the demand for housing went down as people got locked up and the Chinese government cracked down. I mean, if you can't go outside of your house, how are you going to look at properties? How are you going to purchase properties? How are you going to move, right? So the interest in the real estate market dropped because of the government's really extreme lockdown policies, and that basically caused this whole bank run. An economy in trouble. In July 10th, over 1,000 furious customers staged a mass protest at Bank of China branch in Henan, demanding their savings be returned. The protesters were beaten up by a violent mob of unknown men in white shirts. So it looks like the government might be hiring mobsters. Who knows? But there's some interesting things going on in China right now, that is for sure. So let's go ahead and talk about how the Chinese real estate economy explosion can, the implosion, I should say, can affect the Western Hemisphere here. So the real estate crisis in China can inflict a bigger economic blow. Right here, I think, is the key point of this article. Though China refuses to acknowledge it, the rigid stamping out of COVID-19 from the country is beginning to affect big companies and industries which are suspending operations in Shanghai and other cities. Meanwhile, new housing sales shrank 27% on the year in volume in the January-June half. Lending to the real estate sector makes up 26% of China's total outstanding loans, compared with 21% and 22% in Japan at the height of the property bubble here. This was very comparable to the 21% and 22% in Japan at the height of the housing bubble here. So you can see that as soon as people are not able to start making these payments on their mortgages, that means that the banks start having a money crunch as well. So the banks won't be able to pay out the savings rates, which were they're offering people to go ahead and deposit their money. So it's kind of like a never-ending debt cycle that China is going through right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at how China is planning to go ahead and fix this issue. So China will offer 200 billion won in special loans to ensure stalled housing projects are delivered to buyers. People familiar with the matter said ramping up financial support for its beleaguered property sector. The previously unreported size of the lending program, which was announced with scant details by Chinese Housing Ministry, Finance Ministry, and Central Bank last Friday. So basically, they're going to do what America has been doing and what other countries have been doing, and well, China's been doing as well. They're going to print a bunch of money, cause rampant inflation in China to go ahead and pay off real estate developers and get the houses finished so that people can be forced to pay off their mortgages. Because right now, there's no incentive for them to pay off the mortgages when they aren't getting their houses that they paid for built. Why would you pay off a mortgage when your contract isn't actually being accomplished? It looks like the Chinese economy is in for a big bust coming here soon. We'll have to see. This could be very bullish news for Bitcoin. However, the Chinese populace, it doesn't mean they have really great access to Bitcoin. From what my friend said, it's Bitcoin is becoming a norm in the Chinese household as a buffer. We're just gonna have to see exactly what happens if Bitcoin can kind of come out of this collection that it has with the normal equity markets. We'll have to see. I hope that helped you guys out, helped you guys get a better view of the Chinese housing bubble market crash, as well as the banking issues they're having in China right now. Have a great day. If you guys have anything to note about this video, please let me know in the comments below. Any feedback is appreciated. I really appreciate every time you guys come to my channel and leave the little comments, and it just gives me motivation. So have a great day, everybody. Peace out.